So for today's What Wednesday question, we're going to try to answer a question. We've got quite a bit. How much do you spend on gas?
What?
And so we've had a lot of comments saying you guys are too generic. You don't go too in detail enough. And so here is the answer to the question. If you want to just finish it up, be done with it. It's in the last, I'm going to do the last 4 months. I can tell you exactly how much we spent in gas each month. In July, we spent $904. August, $268. September was $388. October was $594. And those gas numbers aren't just the motorhome. I mean, that's our Subaru and the motorhome. You can tell when we go in July and October, they go way up because we're going that long distance across the country. So our motorhome, as far as miles per gallon, it gets between 6 and 8. It varies a lot depending on the wind. It varies depending on whether you're in mountains or not. It varies based on traffic because the more you're stopping and starting, the more fuel you're going to use. What I've kind of noticed is it almost doesn't matter where you're at. There's some sort of a factor. In the East, it was traffic, and in Colorado, it was the mountains, in the Midwest, Nebraska and places like that. I mean, it's the wind. So it's really tough. And it's not like you want to just travel places that give you ideal mileage anyways, but that's what I've noticed is it's pretty rare to have like an ideal mileage situation. It kind of fluctuated a lot between that 6 and 8. 4 tips for saving gas when you're on the road. One is buy as small of a tow vehicle as you can buy. The larger the vehicle is, the worse gas mileage it's going to get, and it's going to be more weight behind the motorhome, and that's going to cause your motorhome to get worse mileage when it's pulling it.
We've tried to balance that 6 to 8 miles per gallon out on the motorhome with our Subaru that we pull behind our motorhome. It gets about 30 miles per gallon, which is awesome. And so we will use our Subaru to get around, whether we're, we don't mind to actually park our motorhome outside of an area to save a little bit of money and drive our Subaru into a high interest area, since we do get such great mileage. Also, a reason we went with our Subaru is because it is so light to pull behind our motorhome, which that helps with your mileage as well. We were pulling a Jeep before, which everyone knows. If you've seen our videos, I love the Jeep, but
four-door Jeep.
Yeah, so it was heavier and it didn't get as great of mileage as our Subaru, so there has been some advantages. It's hard for me to say.
The Subaru is the economical choice, but the Jeep is the emotional choice, I guess. The big factor for us was with our gas motorhome. It's already so heavy with a gas engine that we could pull it off with the 4-door Jeep, but it was really tough because it was so much heavier and boxier. And I could tell a definite difference between towing the Subaru versus a 4-door Jeep. Our motorhome's like 26,000 pounds. So if you've got one that's 23 and it's got the same engine we've got with the V10, it might not be as big of a difference with the Jeep back there. But for us, already being, probably 24, 25,000 out of that 26,000 pound limit, the 1,500 extra pounds the Jeep gave us in the back, I could definitely tell it was there. Secondly, when we park, we try to get within 30, 45 minutes of where we want to go. So we've got that flexibility. So sometimes we actually won't have to take the motorhome into a separate highway or into a high elevation area. We've got a lot of flexibility on where we can park our motorhome. And then we drive our Subaru into those areas that might be more mountainous or might be, a little bit farther away. Sometimes there's places you go sometimes where all you're doing is going down the highway and then turn around, coming right back. So if that's the case, we try to park before that turnaround, and we use the Subaru to go do that stuff. Thirdly, when you're driving your motorhome, I've noticed, I have not calculated this because it's really tough to calculate whether or not exactly what speed I'm going, exactly what mileage I'm getting and everything, but I've definitely noticed a difference if I'm going 65 or less versus that $900 month we had coming out west. I was going like 70, 75 the whole time. It was like guzzling gas. On the way home, I kept it 65 or less. Yeah, it took us a little longer to get there, but it was probably, a little easier to drive. I was just going at my own pace. And from what I've read, just going down from 70 to 65 or from 75 to 65 for sure, you're going to save 20 to 30% on your gas. So to me, it's worth it to go 10 to 15% slower and save 20, 30% on gas, especially when we got a lot of gas. That sounds really bad.
Maybe you have a lot of gas.
Especially when we use a lot of gas. Is that better? When we're traveling.
last worst case, just slow down. I guess that's why we haven't told our numbers of what we've spent on gas, because it's all so dependent. In some months, we're not traveling very much, and other months we're moving quite a bit. So it all depends on your travel style. If you want to save money on gas, then obviously the best solution would be to stay in areas longer. And which we will do that, but just with our style, we tend to slow down more when we come back to visit our family, and so that will help us save money, and because we're not moving around while we're visiting them. And then we tend to go faster when we're traveling in a different area, so it kind of evens out for us. But if that's not a style that you would prefer, if you would prefer to park somewhere a month at a time, then obviously you're going to save more gas money doing that, because spending gas depends on how much you're moving.
Yeah, there's so much that comes into play with the gas. It's, where you're driving it, how far you're going. I mean, when I give the numbers of $900 in July, some people say, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine spending that. And some people are like, yeah, I spend that every other month. I mean, it just totally depends on your rig and where you're going. There's so many factors. That's why I think it's more important to focus on the principles of, some things you can do to try to get better mileage rather than the exact numbers themselves. But yeah, worst case, slow down, right? Park it. And then it's like $0 a month. Well, you have to be somewhere pretty cool, I guess, to, it might be a little more than that, but definitely not $900 a month. But those are some numbers from what we've spent on gas the last 4 months. If you got any other questions or comments, just let us know.